Cornhole Nation, what is up? This is Trey Ryder with the ACL, bringing you the third episode of the Film Room. I got a great game from the 2018 ACL Final Chase to bring you, one that was one of my favorites from last season. So much action, so much back and forth action. It's really going to be a great one. We have Timothy Pitcher and Ryan Smith taking on Frank Maudlin and Jordan Langworthy. This game was to get into the ESPN broadcast, so there was a ton on the line here. This was an ESPN3 broadcast, so a lot of good things to cover. This is the Film Room. Alright guys, we're going to actually jump into the first round of the game, and you're going to see in a second why I chose this first round. You see those first bags in each by Timothy Pitcher on the right or on the left here, and then Frank Maudlin on the right. You see Frank has gone off right at the beginning and place this bag off to the left side of the hole. Now, anytime you got a bag sitting on the front half of the hole, you're going to at least think about trying to drag the bag in. Now, one thing I want to pay attention here, and the reason that this game is going to get off to such a crazy start, is one thing you always have to factor in is where in the pitcher box you are located. So if you see here on your screen how far to the right that Frank Maudlin is standing, he's automatically displacing where his normal trajectory of the bag is going to land. What I mean there is if Frank was standing in the center of the board or in his normal place in the pitcher's box, let's say he was standing right here, his normal land of the bag trajectory would be about right here, and then it would travel up the board and into the hole. But since, let's use a different color here, since he is standing here, if he were to throw the exact same bag, the trajectory of his bag is actually going to start and land right here and then travel up the board. So automatically you have such a small room for error. You can't make a mistake if you're landing or standing so far to the left of the board. And as you can see from this shot that Frank makes, he's going to land off the side of the board. That's going to set Timothy Pitcher up for a big round. Timothy's able to block the hole here, and then Frank is left with another decision to make. Is he just going to go with a normal slide shot and go right up the middle and sacrifice the bag on the left side of the hole, or is he going to try to go for an aggressive shot like an airmail? Now, the thing you want to pay attention to here is if you go for this airmail and you miss, you are going to be giving up big points. Timothy Pitcher showing a 10 right now. If this black bag goes in for him, that's going to end up being a 12 points for Timothy Pitcher. And right now, Frank is only showing 4. So you got to keep that in mind when you make your shot. Frank, being the aggressive player that he is going to go for this airmail and is end up going to miss it. What is that going to lead to? It's going to lead to an 8-point round out of the gate for Timothy Pitcher and Ryan Smith. So keep in mind when you go for these airmails to save a round, not all the times are they going to pay off. All right, we're going to fast forward a little bit. The game is now 15-0, so a big lead for Smith and Pitcher. Ryan Smith is going to start the round with a block. Now, Jordan does something that I really advise to a lot of players. If you know that your opponent is not as good at airmailing as you are. This is what I call a double block. You start, or your opponent starts out the round with a block. You block right behind it so that nobody is able to push any bags in, and it leaves you the opportunity to turn the round into an airmailing game. Now, Ryan Smith is actually going to triple block to further emphasize the fact that we are not going to be pushing all these bags in. Bag goes a little deep. Jordan Langworthy follows up with an airmail. But like I said, that triple block kind of morphed a little bit into a push away bag or a bully bag. It did push this bag a little bit out of the way, allowing Ryan Smith to follow up with a push attempt. But like I said, anytime you end up with a push, you always run the risk of a bag kicking right or a bag kicking left. That's why we like blocks so much. In this case, it ended up going to the right side of the hole, allowing Jordan to recover with a hard push up the center. Ryan Smith will follow up with a bag down the center, and then Jordan Langworthy makes a very uncharacteristic bag off the back. Now, this round wasn't filled with a ton of action, a little bit of teaser, but there's one thing I want to emphasize. After this round, the score becomes 18-0. 18-0. I mean, look at this. This game, in many people's eyes, is over. Well, you're going to see in a second the game was not quite over. What I'm going to look at here, and one thing I want to emphasize, is up to this point, Smith and pitcher had not yet attempted an airmail shot. 0 for 0. Okay? Maudlin and Langworthy were an uncharacteristic 1 for 3. 33%. That's about half the percentage you would expect for some top-level players like Maudlin and Langworthy. So, 18-0, Smith and pitcher, no airmail attempts yet. Maudlin and Langworthy, 1 for 3. Keep that in mind. All right, we're going to fast forward a little bit here. Now, Maudlin and Langworthy have put up some 4 points. It's just been some slide rounds, nothing over the top. I would say game-changing as far as momentum goes. But one thing I wanted to pay attention to here is how the momentum is really going to begin to change in this match. Jordan Langworthy with first bag is going to lay up a block. Now, one thing I want to talk about and keep in mind are there are 2 ways a bag can lay on the board for a block that can really influence how easily it is pushed. This is something I've really been studying as of late, and you can see by this bag right here, it is laying what I call flat in front of the hole, okay? If you were to push towards the hole, it's hitting a flat surface. It is perpendicular to the plane of the flight of the bag. In these type of situations, I find that bags that are laying flat in front of the hole are much easier to be grabbed and brought into the hole, as opposed to another way a bag can land that we'll talk about in a second. So we follow this up. We're going to see how Ryan Smith handles this. And he handles it just fine. It sits in front. His bag stays in front. It doesn't go with it, but that's just a choice of power. He didn't choose to push it as hard as he could. So we'll see how Jordan Langworthy finishes up. He's going to triple block it. Now, like I said, double blocks and triple blocks lead to airmail rounds. You are forcing a hand here. Okay, he's going to make Ryan try an airmail. But the problem is, Ryan isn't confident in that airmail. At least that is what this next shot is showing me. He quadruple blocks. Now, in my opinion, there is no reason to ever quadruple block, okay? Unless the bags are in a certain orientation to where they look pushable respect to one another. A quadruple block is simply saying there is either A, no room for an airmail, which is not the case here, or B, I don't have the utmost confidence in my airmailing ability at this time. What does that tell Jordan? The gates are open for an airmail. He's got a chance for a block, and he hits it. The reason why you don't want to lay up in that situation is if you're Ryan is, look at this. Jordan still has a bag in his hand. You have to assume at the pro level that a player can hit at least 50% of his airmails. If he can hit 50% of his airmails, that means if he's got 2 bags left, you have to assume that he is going to hit one of them. By laying up on the previous shot, Ryan Smith is saying, I don't think you can hit one of 2. I want you to take your own bag in. Ends up not paying up for him. What did I say? Ryan Smith forced to go for an airmail, and he misses it. This is the first time you're going to see a momentum swing in this game because Jordan Langworthy is going to hit that airmail. He's going to guarantee himself at least 3 points. But when Ryan Smith goes for a second airmail, he misses to give up 6. Just like that, the game flips on a dime, and we are 18-10. Momentum completely changed simply by Jordan Langworthy recognizing that Ryan Smith was either A, not confident in his airmails, or B, just hadn't thrown them yet in the game and needed to do something to stop the big lead and stop the bleeding from getting any worse. A masterful round by Langworthy. We're going to fast forward a couple rounds, and there's not much analysis here, but this just goes to show sometimes pressure can bust a pipe. We got a 20-18 game here. Maudlin and Langworthy have now taken the lead over Smith and Pitcher. Smith and Pitcher can win it, though, with a 4-point or a 3-point round. Maudlin and Langworthy only need a point. And right here, with 3 bag, 1, 2, 3 to only 1 of Pitcher's bags, that means if Pitcher can just finish out with the 2 bags in his hand in the hole, him and Smith are going to win. He finishes up with 1 hair, puts the pressure on to Frank Maudlin. He's going to make his bag a clutch shot there. Now, Timothy Pitcher, all you got to do, a slide bag in. One thing I think he failed to recognize is that he's got a backboard here. He can throw it a little bit harder. He is coming from this angle. So even if you're looking at a trajectory, maybe even step out a little bit here and give yourself a perfect angle, throwing it sideways. Set everything up to be in your advantage for this last slide shot. I think he rushes it just a little bit. The nerves maybe makes him throw it a little bit short. And the devastation on the face. You can recognize a bag in the hole there. Books you a ticket on the television stage. Instead, he settles for 2 in a 2020 game. The very next round we fast forward to, and there's one thing I wanted to mention and one thing I talked about, okay? Before, I talked about a bag that was blocking flat. It was perpendicular to the trajectory of the bag. In this case, look, we have an angled block, all right? Now, many of you won't think there's a huge difference, but what I want to tell you is the room for error on an angled bag sitting in front of the hole is so small. A bag laying flat, when you go with it and you push through it, it will stick to your bag. It will grab it and go with it. Unfortunately, if you have this angle, you will not get that same benefit of the doubt. So be careful how you attack bags based on how they're landed on the board. You're going to see Ryan Smith is going to push through this bag. And when he does, it just kicks a little bit. Now you say, Trey, that probably wouldn't have went in anyway. But let's rewatch here and see where this bag lands. See if I can time it perfectly. And so it lands here, about right here, and it travels right on the corner of this hole. Now, if it sits on the corner of the hole, Ryan is going to have the ability to at least try and drag it in subsequent throws. But the problem is, since Jordan's bag was at an angle, it kicked this black bag to the right side, ever so slightly. It's not that big of a difference, but when you're talking about not being able to give up 2 points, Jordan is then able to push this bag just enough out of the way that it won't be able to be drug by Ryan Smith. We're going to see how it turns out. Ryan Smith has to think about at least trying to drag that bag. And he's not able to do it, leaving Jordan just a slide bag shot, able to get in the hole and take the victory for Maudlin and Langworthy. The next game, Maudlin and Langworthy would win again and advance to that ESPN stage, leaving Smith and Pitcher out of that Final Four of doubles. A devastating loss, one that I know still haunts them to this day. I talked to them about it, and the one thing they want to emphasize to all of you watching, the game is never over until it turns 21. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Film Room, breaking down one of my favorite games from the 2018 season. For now, this has been Trey Ryder with the ACL. We'll see you guys next time on the Film Room.